Good afternoon. I would like to call this meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. We're going to start with the adoption of the agenda. Item number 127-3973, approval to adopt the agenda dated July 28th, 2026. May I have a motion and a second? And please vote. And that motion passes 5-0. Presentations. Item number 227-3914, overview of the fiscal year 2026-2027 proposed tentative millage rates, first public hearing. Welcome.
Hello. Good evening, Board Chair, Board members, and Superintendent Pender. My name is Joyce McIntyre, the Chief Financial Officer, and I'm joined by Dion Makinson, the Coordinator of Finance. Welcome to our first public hearing of the Hernando County School Board's tentative millage rates and budget for the 26-27 fiscal year. This hearing has been duly advertised as in accordance with statutory requirements. As required by law, the school board must hold 2 public hearings on the proposed millage rate and budget. Tonight's meeting is the first public hearing on the tentative millage rates and budget. The second and final public hearing is proposed for September 8th, 2026 at 5:01. At that meeting, the board will be asked to adopt the final budget for the 2026-27 fiscal year and approve a resolution establishing the final millage rates. This evening agenda includes the following items: an overview of the truth and millage trim requirements, a presentation of the proposed tentative millage rates and budget for 26-27 fiscal year, an opportunity for the public to comment, board consideration of a resolution adopting the tentative millage rates and the budget, board action to establish the date and time of the second public hearing, board authorization to submit certification of the school taxable value. Now I'll begin with an overview of the truth and millage, or TRIM requirements. The truth and millage process provides the public an opportunity to comment on the proposed millage rates in the district budget. TRIM statute also prescribed the required format and publication of the budget advertisements as well as the order of business for the public hearings. Oh, geez, where did it go? Okay. In accordance with these requirements, this budget was published in the St. Pete Times on Sunday, July 27th, in the newspaper. After 2 to 5 days, the TRIM advertisement, the budget must have its first public hearing for the public to see. The tax roll was certified by the property appraiser on July 1st. On July 12th, the Florida Department of Revenue certified the 26-27 estimate tax roll, which is the basis for the required local millage in the FEFP program. Also certified was the 24-25 and the 25-26 final tax rolls, which are used to determine if there is a prior period funded adjustment. This isn't working. Here. Okay. On July 17th, the Commissioner of Education certified the required local effort millage rate of 3.009. The RLE of 3.009 is added to the prior period adjustment of 0.008, the discretionary operating millage of 7.748, capital outlay of 1.500, and the voted operating millage of 1.000, which make up a total combined rate of 6.265. This slide illustrates the property tax roll and the total millage rates compared to the previous year. As you can see, the taxable value increased by $862 million from the previous year. This reflects an increase of 4.13% in the tax base. The RLE decreased from 3.017 to 3.009. The 1.5 local capital improvement remained the same, as well as the discretionary operating millage, which is 7.748. However, once the prior period adjusted is added, which is 0.008, to the total millage, the rates remain the same as last year. Please note that the board must levy the established RLE millage rate in order to receive the state share of FEFP funding, which is $107,266,477. The total proposed tentative millage rates as advertised is expected to generate $130.8 million, or an increase of $5.1 million more than last year. The required local effort, discretionary, and prior period adjustment make up a total combined millage rate and revenue of $78 million, which is $3.1 million more than the previous year. Capital outlay will generate $31.3 million in revenue, which is about $1.2 million more than the previous year. And the additional voted millage is expected to generate $20.8 million in revenue, which is $827,000 more than the previous year. This next slide illustrates the impact of homeowners of various property values. The comparison assumes that home qualifies for the homestead exemption and that there's been no increase in the taxable value. Under these assumptions, there's no change in the school taxes compared to last year. This concludes the first part of this presentation. Does anybody have any questions before we move on?
Okay. And before you move on, I have to read item number 3. Are there any further questions? Okay. Item number 3, 27-3915, continuation of the fiscal year 2026-27 proposed tentative budget, first public hearing. You may begin. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm back. Joyce McIntyre, Chief Financial Officer, and Dale Makinson, the Coordinator of Finance, and we're here to present the 26-27 proposed budget. Tonight, we'll look at our all funds individually, and then we'll ask for your approval to adopt the tentative budget for 26-27. The budget is made up of 5 distinct funds. Each fund has unique types of revenues and appropriations designed to accomplish specific purposes. The particular funds used are based on standards established by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. The 5 funds consist of General Fund, Food Service Fund, Special Revenue Fund, Debt Service Fund, Capital Projects Funds. Here you will see a combined tentative budget for 26-27, including transfers of $490,556,652. Now we'll get into more detail for each. The general fund is the operating budget for the school district. This slide illustrates the projected general fund revenues for 26-27 fiscal year. We have federal revenue of $1.1 million. The revenue source comes from military ROTC, reimbursement, and Medicaid reimbursement billings. Our state revenue is projected at $130.3 million, which is based on the Florida Department of Education's second FEFP calculation. Additionally, state revenue also includes revenue from workforce development, state license tax, voluntary pre-K, and grants from Southwest Water Management District. The state revenue represents an increase in the base student allocation from $5,372.60 to $5,457.60 per student, which is about $85 more per student than last year. Our property tax revenue is $78.6 million, which is an increase of 3.1 over 25-26. We also have budgeted estimated collection from the voter 1 mil at $20.8 million. While there's an increase in property tax revenue, which is pretty high, Florida DOE reduced our FEFP funding for the Family Empowerment Scholarship by a total of $31.6 million. Local revenue is estimated at $4.4 million. Our total transfers in from capital funds is $5.6 million, bringing our total general fund revenue budget to $241.1 million. Our projected beginning total fund balance is $27.7 million, or 11.8% of the general fund revenues. This slide is an overview of the general fund appropriations by objects. Objects are used to classify the type of goods and services acquired. Our salaries and benefits are $197.8 million. Purchase services to cover contracted services is about $18.8 million. Energy and other utility expenditures are $8.4 million. Materials and supplies cover consumable classroom supplies in the amount of $17.7 million. Capital outlay in the amount of $3.1 million, and other expenditures in the amount of $899,000, which is primarily used for dues and fees. Our projected ending fund balance for June 30th, 2027 is $21.9 million, bringing our total general fund appropriations to $268,904,037. This slide illustrates the general fund appropriation budget by each object. As you can see, salaries and benefits account for approximately 80.10%, purchase services are at 7.64%, and materials and supplies are at 7.18%, with the remainder, energy, capital, and other expenditures making up 5.07%. Here we have our general fund appropriations by function. Function is defined as activities aimed to accomplish a major service or regulatory responsibility. 87.1% of the budget is for school-level programs. 41.7% is for support functions, and 8.2% represents transfers and fund balance. So here's where we are now. our total non-spendable, restricted, assigned, and unassigned beginning preliminary fund balance for July 1st is $27.7 million. We have estimated revenues of $241.1 million, our appropriations at $246.9 million, and our projected ending fund balance on June 30th, 2027 at $21.9 million. This leaves an increase in appropriations over revenues in the amount of $5.8 million. To summarize, the general fund ending fund balance on June 30th, 2027 of $21.9 million. This again includes our non-spendable, restricted, and assigned fund balance of $10.1 million, leaving a projected unassigned fund balance of $11.8 million, or 5.1% over the general fund revenues. The projected unassigned ending fund balance of 5.1% is a preliminary number because we're still completing our year-end process. We actually haven't even run our final AP accrual run, so that number is probably definitely going to change. So before I turn this over to Dion, does anyone have any questions at this part of the presentation?
Nope.
Debt service funds are used to account for the accumulation of resources by the payment of general long-term debt principal and interest. We have received all of the year-end information which could impact the debt service revenue, but could also impact the appropriations, all depending on if the state refunded any bond issues. At this time, we anticipate our total revenue of $10.2 million. Debt service appropriations account for the required debt service payments on the district's outstanding debt, which includes state bond of education bonds, refunding and capital improvement revenue bonds, and certificate of participations. For the fiscal year 26-27, the total debt service appropriations are $10.2 million. Capital project funds account for financial resources used for acquisitions or construction of capital facilities and equipment. Revenues are calculated on official state notification, certified county tax assessments, and historical experience. A primary source of capital revenue is the ad valorem tax levy, which is determined by the certified tax roll. The half-cent sales tax proceeds, interest income, and impact fees are based on expected cash flow, projected interest rates, and historical experience. This slide represents capital revenues of $59.7 million and an estimated beginning fund balance of $98 million. The final numbers will be established as we finish the year-end closeout process, and they will be included in the final budget that is presented to the board in September. The primary use of capital project funds is for major capital acquisitions or construction projects financed through borrowings and other capital assets. Capital funds can also be used for maintenance, renovation, and repairs paid through the general fund as permitted by Florida state statutes. For 26-27 fiscal year, total capital outlay appropriations are $19.9 million, with $15.5 million in transfers out and a projected ending fund balance of $122.2 million. The projected ending fund balance will be updated after 25-26 accounts payable accrual run is posted for 25-26 capital projects have been identified as incomplete and are carried forward into 26-27. Before I move on to special revenue fund, are there any questions I can answer for the board?
Nope. You may move on.
Special revenue is combined of two major sections, food service and federal grants. These funds are used to account for resources that are legally restricted for specific purposes. The first special revenue fund we want to go over is food service. It is a financially self-sustaining program in which operations are accounted for in a separate special revenue fund. Funds needed to operate this service are generated primarily from 5 sources: federal reimbursement or student meals, federally provided USDA commodities, a limited amount of state supplement, cash sales to students and adults. Funds are appropriated to provide for district-wide cafeteria operations. The total revenue for food and nutrition for 26-27 is $19.7 million, At this time, our beginning fund balance is $12.5 million. The appropriations for food service programs total $20.5 million. Salaries and benefits account for 22%, materials and supplies 37%, and the remaining 41% are for purchase services, energy, capital outlay, and other expenditures. The estimated ending fund balance for June 30th, 2027 is $11.6 million, bringing the total food service budget to $32.2 million. Now let's look at special revenue fund. The programs accounted for in this total are Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, Title IX, Carl Perkins, IDEA, IDA Pre-K, Adult Education, SEDNet Federal and SEDNet Trust, Immigrant Children and Youth in the Charter School Program. The total revenue for the new entitlement federal grants is $21 million, which includes the 25-26 roll forward. Spending of funds in special revenue projects are identified in individual grant applications. The total appropriations are $18.7 million, with 70% allocated in salaries and benefits, 15% allocated in purchase services, 6% allocated in materials and supplies, and the remaining 9% for capital outlay and other expenditures. To sum everything up, the total of our tentative budget, including transfers, is $490,556,652. Does anyone have any questions?
No? Okay. At this time, we're going to move on to our citizens input. Item number 4, 27-3974. Do we have any green speaker forms? Yes. All right. Mr. Myers, could you please read the instructions for
Sure. This is an opportunity for public to address the items on the budget hearing. The agenda for this meeting is located by the entrance to the boardroom. To speak at this time, you should have already completed a green citizen input speaker form, also located on the tables at the entrance of the boardroom. You should indicate the item or items you wish to address on the citizen input form. If you have any attachments you wish to share with the board, please provide them to the board secretary prior to speaking. Each speaker will have 3 minutes during this segment of the agenda. Speakers will be called by number to come forward by the chair. Prior to making your remarks, please state your name and address for the record. Inquiries or comments made during citizen input may be followed up and reported to the board by the superintendent or staff thereafter. Those are the instructions for the budget hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. All right. We'll have speaker number 1 come up, and you can actually have a seat at the chair.
Good evening. Lisa Masario, current president of HCTA. I live in Brooksville, and this is I'm going into year 23 in the district, just for context. However, it's only been over the last couple of years that I've actually looked as closely at the district budget as we've needed to. And I just wanted to pose a couple of questions. First being the millage carry forward in this budget plan is showing a $1.747 million in carry forward, and last year it was a $6 million carry forward. So just a question, to the board that do you know, do you have an accounting for the millage carry forward difference? I know that we have had some periodic meetings updating on millage and half-cent funds. There are committees still working to be formed and to have the oversight, but I just think it's important that we know, that's a significant amount because millage carry forward was a frequent topic of discussion for us last year. Also, the half-cent, is it always budgeted as a flat 18 million? So no variance, no change. Does it grow? Do we collect more sometimes? Do we collect less? It reflects as 18 million, which I think is what has been projected and has been. I remember that was what we talked about when we were trying to secure the renewal for the half-cent as well. So those few questions. Obviously, this is the preliminary budget hearing, and I truly hope that given how recent developments have happened with negotiations, that there is due consideration given in your budget planning to make sure that all instructional. We don't leave anybody out. We don't leave anybody out. So I ask for that consideration as you move forward in a budget planning process. And I also just want to ask and make sure that you, now that we record and we stream, are you watching? Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 2.
Let me just add something to that. The reason it's recorded is because of us. So we wanted to make sure it was recorded.
You may begin.
Patricia Greenwood, Spring Hill, speaking as an individual. First, I wanted to clear up the fallacy. A lot of people think that the required 5% minimum is just the unassigned, but according to state statute and board policy, the fund balance in its operating fund that are not classified pursuant to policy 6100 as restricted, committed, or non-spendable equal to 5%. So that would be assigned and unassigned together. That was just one thing that I wanted to bring forward. I'm a little miffed, but I'm happy to see that the health insurance profit sharing from Budget Amendment 3 until this went up by $929,000, and that the unassigned that was reported on Budget Amendment 3 as $11,902,000 is now $18,382,000 as presented here, which is $7 million more than Budget Amendment 3 at the end of March 31st. So just things that I'm happy to see and wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this time, we'll move on to the adoption of the tentative millage. Item number 5, 27-3918, adoption of the tentative millage rates for the fiscal year 2026-2027. May I have a motion and a second? Do we have any discussion? Board? No? Okay, then you may vote. And that passes 5-0. Item number 6, 27-3916, adoption of the tentative budget for the fiscal year 2026-2027, resolution R27-002. May I have a motion and a second? Any discussion? Okay, please vote. And that passes 5-0. Item number 7, 27-3917, establishment of the second public hearing on the 26-27 millage rates and budget. May I have a motion and a second? Any discussion? Please vote. And that passes 5-0. Item number 8, 27-3919, authorization to submit certification of school taxable value to Hernando County property appraiser. May I have a motion and a second? Please vote. We're waiting on someone to vote. And that passes 5-0. At this time, board members, do we have any closing comments? Anybody have anything to say? Ms. Modzik?
Lisa, to answer your question, I watch every meeting, yes. And that was the reason why when we all sat, we all wanted to be able to watch without being in the negotiation part.
All right. Mr. Myers, do you have any closing comments?
No, I don't, Madam Chair.
Superintendent Pinder? Thank you for you and your team. I appreciate your hard work. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 5:28 p.m. Thank you.